Fun fact, did you know that Rusty was based off of a real dog that the creator of Bluey owned? Well, today we have a very interesting video. As you can tell by the title, today we will be doing an iceberg on none other than Bluey. When most people look at Bluey, it doesn't seem to go very deep. After all, it's just a show about a family having fun, right? Well, if that's what you think, you'll be surprised. In just 2 seasons, the show has not only proved how fun its concept can be, but it's also raised many questions, incidents, and rumors in the process. Even as a Bluey fan myself, I learned some very interesting facts that I would love to share. Without further ado, let's get started. Bluey is a girl. Let's start with the biggest misconception about the show. No, Bluey is not a boy, she's a girl. Alright, that's the most obvious one, I just wanted to get it out of the way. Let's keep going. Blue Heeler. Speaking of Bluey herself, she is based off of a species of dog known as the Blue Heeler, a cattle dog that is native to Australia, the country where Bluey is produced. On top of that, the name Heeler is also the last name of Bluey and her family. There are also many other Blue Heelers in the show, such as her father Bandit and her cousins Socks and Muffin. Ludo Studio. Ludo Studio is a small animation studio based in Brisbane, a city in Australia. They are mostly known for being the studio behind, well, Bluey. They also work on other projects and comedies from time to time, but it appears that most of their efforts are placed on Bluey as of now. Joe Brum. Joe Brum is the creator of Bluey and is also the writer of every episode of the show as of now. According to him, he got the idea of the show from his past experiences with his children and the games they would play together. Outside of Bluey, Brum has also worked on other shows such as Charlie and Lola and even Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom, a show created by the same people and company as Peppa Pig. With that in mind, that will come into play later, so don't forget. Character ages. Unlike most shows, not only do the characters have defined ages, such as Bluey being 6 years old, but they also age as well. For instance, when the show first began, Bluey's sister Bingo was 4. However, in season 2, she had a birthday party, which made her 5 years old by the end of the season. (2016) pilot. In 2016, a short pilot was released to test the concept of the show before it was produced. It was a short animation that involved Bluey, Bingo, and Bandit playing with each other, with Chili making a short appearance. Interestingly, while the animation was made into the season 1 episode The Weekend, it had many differences to the final show. Characters such as Bandit had different character designs, the style of the family's home was completely different, and the intro featured Rusty and Mackenzie, with Bingo barking in the background. The intro also used a part of a song from the band Custard, which Bandit's voice actor, Dave McCormack, was a part of. Bluey the Album. Bluey the Album was an album featuring soundtracks from the backgrounds of some Bluey episodes, such as Pull and Fruit Bat. According to Joe Brum, he had always wanted to release an album to show off how talented the music department is. The music itself was composed by Geoff Bush, the main composer of the show. It was released in January of 2021 and reached the #1 spot on the ARIA's albums chart 1 month later. Bluey's Big Play. Bluey's Big Play was a live show that was originally planned to premiere in 2020. However, due to the you-know-what, most of its showings were postponed. Fortunately, it did play in 2021 to audiences in Australia. The show itself used large puppets who were controlled by performers on stage. According to audiences, the show was a callback to existing episodes, but also had an original story, with Bingo and Bluey helping Chili to get in touch with her distant sister. As of now, the show had not premiered outside of Australia, but Disney Plus is planning to release it on their streaming service. Real locations. One widely accepted fact by Bluey fans is the location of the show, as it has been established that the show takes place in the city of Brisbane, where Ludo Studio is located. On top of that, Audiences have also pointed out that many locations in the show are directly based off of real places in Australia. And while you can't visit Bluey's house, it is interesting to know that you can visit some of the places in the show. Social media shorts. Outside of the regular episodes, Ludo Studio has also made the occasional short, exclusive to social media platforms. As the name implies, the animations are often around a minute long and usually involve the characters doing more slice-of-life activities. Examples include Bingo asking Bandit a question, Bluey and Bingo dancing, and Muffin trying to sing a song. Teen Bluey. In the episode Camping, Bluey meets a boy named Jean-Luc and quickly befriends him despite their language barrier. However, Bluey is devastated when she realizes that Jean-Luc has left the campsite and has to come to terms with the fact that she may never see him again. But, at the end of the episode, a scene taking place years after the show appears, with Bluey, who is now older, coming back to the campsite and meeting Jean-Luc once again. Some people debated over whether it was an imaginary sequence or if this actually takes place in the future, but either way, most concluded that it was a pretty heartwarming ending regardless. Shadowlands. Shadowlands is a Season 1 episode where Bluey and her friends Snickers and Coco play Shadowlands, where they have to move, but can only do so in the shadows. The main conflict came from Coco, who wanted to bend the rules of the game, starting a conflict between her and Bluey. However, Coco learns how fun rules can be in games and everybody begins to get along. Overall, nothing too notable, but the episode did receive a board game based off of the episode. Holiday specials. At the end of the first season, an episode named Veranda Santa was aired, which involved the Healer family celebrating Christmas. However, contrary to what some believed, this wasn't a standalone thing, as at the end of the second season, an Easter special was announced. However, at the time I'm writing this, it has yet to air. The Luxo Ball. The Luxo Ball is a colorful toy ball that was featured in the Pixar short, Luxo Jr. Since then, it has been featured in many Pixar movies and shorts. However, the ball has become so iconic that it has made its way into other media, including Bluey, where it makes a cameo in the background. Sausage Dog. No, I'm not referring to Snickers, but a toy sausage dog. While it may not seem like anything special, it is considered a recurring Easter egg, and has appeared in many episodes in different forms. Personally, I haven't noticed them, but how many times have you seen it? Let me know in the comments below. Fourth wall breaks. In multiple episodes throughout the show, characters will occasionally break the fourth wall by looking directly at the audience. Often, it is usually during a troublesome or confusing situation, but happens in other scenarios as well. Jack's ADHD. In the episode Army, a new character is introduced to the show. Of course, the new character is none other than Jack, a Russell who has ADHD, causing him to have difficulty staying still. However, upon meeting Rusty, the two begin to play Army, leading to the two becoming great friends. The episode was received very well by audiences, with its fun story and portrayal of people with ADHD or other conditions. Jack hasn't appeared that often since, but I hope he does get more roles in the future, as this character is very interesting and has a lot of potential. Bluey merchandise in the show. In episodes such as The Quiet Game, books can be seen inside of stores Bluey and her family pass by. However, upon close inspection, it is revealed that they aren't ordinary books, but books based on real-life Bluey books. While it is a funny reference, it makes you wonder, how does this work? Is Bluey famous in this world? Is it another Blue Healer? We may never know. Recolors. One common technique in animation is to recolor existing characters to fill background space. This way, scenes can feel more immersive without the need to develop completely new characters. In this case, Bluey is no exception, as it has its fair share of recolors as well. For instance, in the episode The Quiet Game, a character that bears a striking resemblance to Bluey can be seen. Also, not even to mention Rusty, who uses a similar model to Bluey with slight differences such as the tail design. Grown-up Bingo. In the episode Daddy Drop-Off, Bingo meets a new kid named Lila, and despite the shy nature of Lila, she becomes great friends with Bingo. However, one twist people weren't expecting was the ending, in which photographs depicting the two over the years are shown, ending with Bingo and Lila graduating as adults, showing how far their relationship has come. Real fairies and magic. In the episode Fairies, the family pretends that fairies have taken over the house, and Bandit must apologize to Bingo to please the fairies. However, at the end of the episode, a real fairy appears and helps Bingo, and while many Bluey episodes have weird twist endings, this one is weirder, as it indicates that magic exists in the show, despite how grounded it is in realism. Bluey goes to a Waldorf school. While a majority of the episodes take place inside the healer's family home, there are also many other episodes that take place in other locations. One recurring location is Bluey's school, where she plays and socializes with her friends, often with the help of her teacher Calypso. However, many have noted that the school is quite different from a traditional school, such as it having an emphasis on creativity and play. As a result, many have concluded that Calypso's school is a type of Waldorf school, where creativity and expression are emphasized. Bluey Movie. According to Joe Brown, he has announced his compassion in getting into film writing, beginning with writing a feature film about Bluey. However, no information about this potential concept have been released. Later on, Brum has also added that the idea of a movie is possible, but that it would be difficult with the amount of animators and creators already busy with the original show. Celebrity cameos. Due to the popularity of Bluey, many celebrities have been contacted and desired to be in the show. One notable example is Robert Irwin, the son of Steve Irwin. He played the character Alfie, a store employee from the episode The Quiet Game. Bluey is based on Peppa Pig. Yep, that's right, the creator said it himself. According to Brum, another inspiration for Bluey came from his experience working on Ben and Holly, where he heard of Peppa. He believed that he could use the concept of talking animals for a show of his own. And from there, said animals became dogs, and those dogs were Blue healers. And well, the rest is history. Rusty's real counterpart. While the Bluey characters are based on real dog species, Rusty himself is special. Not only is he based on a red Kelpie, a type of dog, but he was actually based on a dog that Brum actually owned, who was also named Rusty. Now, I bet the dog wasn't an army fanatic, but it's safe to say that Rusty must have at least taken some inspiration from his real counterpart. Disney censoring. When it comes to worldwide distribution, the primary rights owner is Disney, as they distribute the show through the channels as well as through their streaming service Disney+. However, it hasn't gone perfectly, as many have complained about the large wait times for episodes that were already released, the censoring of things such as farts, and marketing that attempts to Americanize the Australian show. Also, while some episodes did have jokes changed or removed, one episode, Teasing, is not available on Disney+. Racial connotations. Speaking of censoring, in Australia, some episodes were pulled due to some characters saying the term ooga booga, and while it may seem harmless to many, some have argued that the term is offensive, as it has been used as an offensive term to describe the indigenous people of Australia. As a result, the episodes were pulled, with plans to change them appropriately in the future. Original 2014 pilot. 2 years before the 2016 pilot we've all seen, another pilot exists that is yet to surface. According to Brum, it involved Bandit, who was voiced by a different actor, pushing Bluey on a swing, causing her to make a 360 around it. Unfortunately, as of now, the pilot is lost and it has never been released publicly. According to Brum, it was never aired as people considered Bandit's acts dangerous and because the pilot contained copyrighted music. Rusty was Bluey's cousin. Okay, I promise you, this is the last time I'm talking about Rusty, but hear me out. For a brief time on the official Bluey website, Rusty's bio stated that he was a cousin of Bluey. However, this appeared to have been a mistake, as this was removed in later editions of his bio, and while I don't have an official explanation to why this happened, my best guess is that it was due to the two having similar character models. Chili bio controversy. Speaking of bios, let's talk about Chili's. When her first bio was published, it claimed that her part-time job left her falling short of being a parent. However, a few have spoken out against this, claiming that it undermined her character. Shortly after, the bio was quickly changed to remove this sentence. Homeless character. Just like many cartoons, Bluey also has its own set of incidentals, or defined background characters. To give you an idea of what an incidental is, think of the chocolate guy or Harold from SpongeBob. However, one interesting character is one that appears to be homeless, as he is often seen hanging out on the streets, carrying his stuff everywhere he goes. Little is known about this character, but the idea of issues such as homelessness existing in Bluey really does open the door for interesting stories. Winton's divorced parents. While he doesn't make as many appearances as the other characters, Winton does have the occasional role in episodes. One of these is the episode Helicopter, where Winton talks about how his father and mother are separated. Besides that, we also see his father often socializing with other women, likely looking for a companion and mother for his son. Gluten-free lunch. In the episode Daddy Drop-Off, Bandit is seen preparing lunches for his two girls. Interestingly, he states that one is gluten-free, while the other is quote-unquote not gluten-free. Many found this fact interesting, as it indicates that either Bluey or Bingo cannot consume gluten. However, while it isn't confirmed, many have guessed that it is likely Bingo, as she is seen having issues in episodes such as Bumpy and the Wise Old Wolfhound, where she is sent to the hospital. Bandit joke. In the episode Bob Bilby, the family is planning to go on a bike ride when Chili greets them with Vegemite and asks, "Are you ready, Bob?" in a suggestive tone. As a result, Bandit freezes, taking a photo using his camera in the process. With all that context in mind, many have taken this as equivalent to him getting a ding to Chili's suggestive attitude. Bluey and Jean-Luc. Yeah, the Bluey fandom ain't safe from shipping either. And while there are many shippings, one of the most popular ones is between Bluey and Jean-Luc. Some claim that their friendship in camping could lead to a romantic relationship, while others argue that they could just be friends. And of course, others have argued that the idea of shipping child characters in general is a little creepy. Bluey was originally for adults. According to Brum, the show wasn't always meant for a younger audience. In fact, it was originally aimed towards parents, and the more adult struggles that come with it. However, networks suggested that the show should be changed to aim towards a more general audience, and Brum agreed to get the show picked up. Muffin and Socks have autism. Now, I know this isn't a very popular opinion in the fandom, but bear with me here. According to some viewers, this would explain Muffin's more eccentric behavior, and the fact that Socks walked like a real dog in the first season. And while it sounds interesting, there isn't any concrete proof of this as of now. The show misunderstanding. In the episode The Show, Bingo pretends to be her mother Chili, who is pregnant. However, the show goes wrong as the balloon representing Chili's baby pops, leaving Bingo devastated. After the incident, Bandit silently puts his hand on Chili to comfort her, and while nothing about the scene is peculiar in itself, a few believe that Bandit is comforting Chili for a previous incident with a pregnancy. However, many have also argued that Bandit is only comforting Chili as the two know how saddened Bingo would become, and not over something more serious. Grandpa Bob died. Compared to the other relatives of the Healer family, Bluey's grandpa, named Bob, is often left in obscurity, as he has only made an appearance in one episode out of the entire show. With this in mind, many people wondered if the character had passed on, believing that it could be a potential opportunity for the show to discuss the topic of death. However, this appears to not be the case, as in a short, Chili is sending a message to Grandpa Bob, indicating that he's still alive and kicking. Also, he supposedly appears in Road Trip as a background character, but it's unlikely that it was actually intentionally meant to be him. Granddad was in the Vietnam War. Speaking of Bluey's grandfathers, let's talk about Chili's dad, known as Granddad. As the title implies, many have wondered if Granddad has served in a war at some point, specifically the one in Vietnam. And while there aren't any concrete evidence to prove it, actions such as him knowing how to store food in wooded or jungle areas do provide food for thought. Or maybe just likes the outdoors, who knows. Also, while we're discussing this, many have also said that this old portrait in the Gila home is Granddad, so that's something. Bluey takes place in a post-human or apocalyptic world. On the Bluey subreddit, a user named Jack Cairo developed a theory regarding how the Bluey world works. According to them, the show takes place years after a massive nuclear war has wiped out humanity. With the humans absent, dogs have learned to take their place, adapting their ways and becoming mutated from the radioactivity. After becoming more human-like, the dogs eventually learn to rebuild civilizations, often making them resemble those in our current world out of memory. However, the genetics are often unstable, leading to a dog-like behavior to leak in. This has resulted in Sock's nature to walk on all fours, and why the characters sometimes do things like howl or bark occasionally. Alright, we have one more thing to cover on this iceberg, so here we go. Last but not least, Rule 34. Yep, we're ending the iceberg on this. I mean, let's be honest, this is the darkest one. And yes, in case you were wondering, this type of art exists for Bluey too. And no, the children are often not exempt. But yeah, I don't have much else to say. Also, guys, hello! Well, that was quite the ride, wasn't it? Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video and learned some interesting facts about Bluey. What did you think? Are there more things I should cover in the future? After all, I did skip a few things in this video, so let me know and I may make a second part in the future. Well, that's about it for today, so it's time for me to say goodbye. Goodbye and have a wonderful day, everyone. Alright, so a couple months ago, I made a video called The Bluey Iceberg Explained, which as the title implied, was simply an iceberg video about the show Bluey. And while it wasn't the greatest video, it got a ton of views, thanks to the YouTube algorithm. And with that in mind, not only did a lot of you ask for a sequel, but I found a lot more interesting stuff I'd like to talk about as well. In fact, this video might be as, or even crazier than the first one. So buckle up. But before we begin, I want to correct some things I said in the last video, as I definitely made a few mistakes in there, so let's start with that. First off, I mentioned that blue healers were a species of dog. This is incorrect, as they are actually a breed of dog. Second, I mentioned an Easter egg known as the long dog, but referred to it as the sausage dog by mistake. And finally, the first Bluey pilot was not made in 2014 as I originally thought. Rather, it was likely made in 2016. And with that in mind, the second pilot was actually released in 2017, not 2016. But with all that said, the time has finally come. It's time to look at the second Bluey iceberg. Let's get started. Mackenzie is a boy. Yeah, despite having a name that's typically given to girls, Mackenzie is actually a boy. However, in the Latin American dub, Mackenzie was actually referred to as a girl in early episodes, though this was likely a mistake. Official YouTube channel. Just like most kid shows, Bluey has an official YouTube channel, which mainly uploads clips from episodes, shorts, and other bonus content. Overall, nothing too notable, but it is reportedly blocked in Australia for some reason. Bandit's expletives. When faced with trouble, characters will often say specific phrases instead of cursing. For instance, Bandit often does this by referring to food, with his most famous line being,
"Oh, biscuits."
The please face. The please face refers to a running gag in which Bluey characters will make their pupils larger, giving them a more cute and innocent appearance. This is usually done to convince another character to do something, such as Bluey convincing Bandit to play with her. And on top of that, they even made plushies of Bluey and Bingo wearing these faces, though the design mainly resembles that of Bluey's from the episode Yoga Ball. Diversity. In April of 2021, Australian journalist Beverly Wang published an article on ABC News. In this article, she praised Bluey for its lessons and emotional scenes, but also asked if the show could be more diverse. And while the article wasn't harmful in any way, it started a massive debate online, with many arguing that the show was fine the way it is, while others argued that the show could be more diverse. Many also pointed out that the show was already quite diverse and is doing a good job the way it is. And while nothing significant was accomplished, the debate eventually grew outside of the Bluey community and even into mainstream media, so that's something, I guess. Bingo intro. For the Season 2 episode titled Bingo, the intro was altered to better fit the episode, with Bingo being the focus by winning the game of musical statues, something typically done by Bluey, and while it isn't that important, it was a pretty interesting detail and really caught people off guard. Baby Bluey. In the episode Baby Race, Chili recounts her early days of parenting to Bluey and Bingo, and while Bingo wasn't born yet, an infant version of Bluey is seen throughout the episode in flashbacks. And I know turning characters into babies is beyond overdone, but to be honest, Bluey as a baby is pretty adorable. Bipedal Socks. Unlike any other character, Socks walked on all fours, similar to a real dog, as she was too young to walk normally. However, as of Season 2, Socks was seen walking normally, accompanying her increase in age, and while it's an interesting change, many still prefer the original design, and the changes made to her body for this to occur are a bit questionable. The Duck Cake. In the episode Duck Cake, Bandit attempts to make a duck-shaped cake for Bingo's birthday, and while he fails at first, he eventually succeeds with help from Bluey, and throughout the community, the cake has become famous, mainly due to many fans attempting to make the cake on their own. Smuggling theory. Regarding mysteries in Bluey, one thing that has always stood out is the Healer House, where the main characters live, and while it seems normal, the place would be way too costly for the jobs Bandit and Chili have. As a result, many have pondered over how they're able to afford it, such as possibly inheriting it from someone else. However, comedian Zach Mander provided a much more interesting, yet dark theory. In a TikTok post, he points out Bandit's job in archaeology and Chili's job in airport security, and according to him, Bandit's job allows him to be close to artifacts, while Chili's job provides her knowledge to bypass security, and possibly smuggle said artifacts, giving them the money to support their expensive house. And while the theory likely isn't true, it does provide an interesting explanation and spread quickly amongst Bluey fans. Bluey mascot costumes. At some special events, fans can actually meet Bluey and Bingo, which are represented by people wearing giant costumes. And while they aren't perfect, I'll admit that they did a decent job capturing their abnormal design without making it that creepy. Pop culture references. Similar to many other shows, Bluey often likes to make nods to other properties and franchises. Some examples include Chili listening to a spoof of Pink Floyd, the family recreating Jurassic Park, and Chili making a reference to Stranger Things. On top of that, they've also made references to many other things, such as Sans from Undertale and even Vinesauce. Bluey games. As of now, there aren't too many notable Bluey games, but they exist regardless. For example, there's a 5-in-1 set with cards, a board game based off the episode Shadowlands, and a bingo game called Bingo's Bingo. Ha. But outside of physical games, there isn't too much to do. On the Bluey website, there are only 2 games, one where you tap balloons, and another where you dress characters with various props.
Oh, wow!
However, outside of official games, there are some interesting examples. On the Google Play Store, you have your typical generic platformers, and Bluey has even been modded into games such as Friday Night Funkin'. Anonymous voice actors. Despite being the main characters, the voice actors for Bluey and Bingo are not publicly known, and they are not credited in episodes. And while this may seem odd, there is a pretty good reason for it, as according to the creators, the characters are voiced by actual kids, and they are not credited in order to keep their identity secret for safety and peace of mind. And while it would be interesting to know, I do respect their intentions and can see how problems would occur, so props to them. Mr. In-Between cameo. In an episode of the show Mr. In-Between, the Bluey episode The Magic Xylophone can be seen playing on a TV, before it is changed to a sporting game, starting an argument. I have no clue why they chose Bluey of all shows, but I'd like to imagine that someone in prison is actually watching this show. Animation errors. Just like many other shows, Bluey's animation isn't perfect, and while there aren't too many, some goofs have surfaced. And to be honest, most of them are simple things such as objects disappearing in between shots, but there have been some crazy ones, such as Bandit losing his black fur coat and Chili's brown patch glitching on her. IKEA dog. For those who don't know, IKEA is basically a furniture store where you buy furniture in pieces, and then assemble it at home with instructions. And in these instructions, there's often a cartoon man there to help provide help in the pictures. And as crazy as this sounds, he's actually spoofed in the Bluey episode Flat Pack, where an instruction manual shows a dog drawn in the same style. Bandit even responds by saying that he's, quote, not taking advice from a cartoon dog. Banned episode. In the United States, the episode Dad Baby was pulled from airing and is not available on Disney+. And while an official answer hasn't been given, it's likely due to the episode's focus on pregnancy, which Disney probably believed was too much for the younger audiences. $5 bucks. One running gag in Bluey revolves around Bluey's Tooth Fairy money, and how it's passed among different characters. For instance, in the episode Markets, Bluey gives it to Winton's dad, causing it to pass around multiple vendors and eventually to Indy, who at the end of the episode gives it to the busker. And one whole season later, in the episode The Quiet Game, the busker can be seen spending the exact same bill to buy ice cream, which I think is a pretty cool reference, and I hope we get to see it more in the future. Clothing. Another thing that has perplexed Bluey fans is the usage of clothing, as the characters never wear clothes, yet they are seen cleaning them multiple times. And while I don't have a definitive explanation, some have guessed that they're only worn for workplaces and special occasions, which can be seen with characters such as Alfie. Grubbert. Grubbert was the name accidentally given to the character Grubbert through a set of subtitles, causing many to think that was actually his name. However, Ludo eventually confirmed that his real name was Grubbert, ending most of the confusion. Floppy redesign. Floppy is a stuffed rabbit and is one of Bingo's favorite toys, appearing in a few episodes of the show. In the season 1 episode titled Chicken Rat, Floppy appears as a white rabbit with striped ears. However, in the Season 2 episode Sleepy Time, Floppy appears as a purple rabbit with shorter ears. I have no clue how this would have happened, but my best guess is that maybe there's two of them, although it's likely just an inconsistency. And speaking of inconsistencies, Uncle Rad redesign. Unlike most characters, Uncle Rad's first appearance wasn't in person, but rather in a picture, many episodes before he actually appeared. However, when looking closely, it's clear that his design in the picture and his actual character are quite different, with his blue fur originally going up to his head. And while it does raise some questions, it's likely just another inconsistency from the designers, and nothing too deep. Chunky Chimp. Also known as Chutney Chimp, Chunky Chimp is a fictional franchise in the Bluey universe, and plays a role in the episode Movies, where Bluey, Bingo, and Bandit see a movie with the character, and although it's nothing significant, it really shows how much effort the creators put into making the world of Bluey feel real. Rusty's motorbike. According to the official Bluey website, Rusty can ride a motorbike, and while it's an interesting detail in itself, this is something we've never seen or even heard of in the show, at least as of now, which makes this whole thing a real mystery. However, I'd like to think he does, because that would be awesome. Buddy's breathing. While he isn't a very notable character, Buddy is often seen panting a lot, even during normal activities. And it turns out that this is actually due to his breed, as pugs are known to have difficulty with things such as breathing. But since dog breeds such as pugs aren't natural, it raises the question, how were these man-made breeds developed without humans? Jean-Luc book cameo. In the book Where's Bluey, many characters from the show appear, and while most of it seems normal, Jean-Luc also makes multiple appearances, which implies that he could have met Bluey after the event of camping, but before the ending in the future. With that in mind, it's possible that we might see him again in a future episode, which would be interesting. Gender swaps. In foreign dubs of the show, some characters have been mistaken for being a different gender, as the genders of characters aren't focused on very often. Because of this, Bentley is a boy in the Italian dub, and as mentioned before, Mackenzie was originally referred to as a girl in the Latin American dub. Colored eyes. In Bluey, every character has black pupils for their eyes, except two. These two are known as Sadie and the Takeaway Lady, and as weird as it looks, they are both huskies, which do have colorful pupils, but admittedly it still looks weird when compared to all of the other characters, and I do agree that it can look a bit unsettling. Chanel. Chanel is the name of Pat's wife and is mostly known for being quite mysterious, as she's never appeared in the show and has only been mentioned by Pat, causing many to wonder about her whereabouts. However, we won't have to wonder about this for too long, as thankfully the creators mentioned that she would appear in a future episode, so that's something to look forward to.
Alright, so quick side note, depending on where you watch the episode Sean, some subtitles will say Janelle instead of Chanel, and listening to it closely, it's really hard to tell what Pat or Lucky's dad is actually saying, so it can easily be either name, and not just Chanel.
Johnny. Johnny is the name given to Jean-Luc in the French dub of Bluey, where he speaks English to a French-speaking Bluey, preserving the message of the episode while making it understandable to French audiences. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend watching the French dub with camping, because it's honestly quite fascinating seeing the difference. Licensed chocolate. Just like many franchises, Bluey has been featured on many edible products, with most of them involving chocolate, such as candies, advent calendars, and milk. And even though they're pretty nice, it's pretty ironic considering that actual dogs get seriously ill when consuming chocolate. Also, they do eat actual chocolate in the show, and assuming that the chocolate is real, This either implies that they are an advanced species of dog, or that they are something else. Deleted short. As of now, the Bluey YouTube channel has every Bluey short available for viewing, except for one, and this one was known as Tongue Twisters, which was uploaded to the channel but deleted a day after, and has not been re-uploaded since. And while it was considered lost, it is available on other platforms and was even re-uploaded by fans to YouTube, and according to some, it was originally deleted due to an error with the outro. 101 Dalmatians reference. On the front of Chloe's house, we can see that her address has the number 101, and considering the fact that her and her family are Dalmatians, it's obviously a nod to the Disney movie 101 Dalmatians, which is pretty neat. The busker is Joff Bush. For those who don't know, the busker is the name given to a secondary character from Bluey, who is often seen playing music to make money. However, many have also wondered if he's based on Joff Bush, the main composer for the show, as the two look remarkably similar and are often associated with music. And interestingly, Joff himself confirms this, as he actually voices the character, and his profile picture online literally refers to the busker by his name, indicating that the character is in fact meant to represent him. Shipping. Just like every other fandom, the Bluey fandom is home to many shippings between characters, with the most popular one being between Bluey and Jean-Luc, due to the friendship the two have with each other. However, many others also exist as well, such as Bluey and Mackenzie, Bingo and Leela, Mia and Captain, Band and Uncle Stripe, DeviantArt and Fur Affinity. Once again, just like any other fandom, many have drawn fan art related to Bluey, often posted them on sites such as DeviantArt and Fur Affinity. And honestly, there isn't that much interesting or great art, but if you look hard enough around the internet, you'll find some pretty nice ones. News article accidentally uses fan art. Speaking of fan art, it's not uncommon for some works to be surprisingly similar to official artwork, which often leads to fan art being mistaken for official images. In the case of a website known as Kidscreen, one of their articles featured an image of Chili being pregnant, which is something that never happens in the actual show, and an article by Kidspot features an image of Bandit playing the guitar, which, you can guess, also never happens in the actual show. Bluey takes place in 2020. Unlike most cartoons, Bluey not only takes place in the present day, but seemingly also in specific years. In the episode movies, Bluey, Bingo, and Bandit see a trailer for a movie which is set to release in April of 2020. Therefore, this implies that the episode takes place sometime before April 2020, likely a couple weeks or months before. And while it's not that important, it is a pretty interesting thing to note, and does raise a few questions. Cats and Bluey. While the show is mainly about dogs and other canines that act like humans, many other animals are also present as well, such as birds and insects. However, one animal that hasn't been seen in the show are cats, as no feral or bipedal ones are actually seen in the show. In fact, the only signs of their existence appear in things such as signs in pictures, but no real or physical appearances. Therefore, it seems that feral, or normal cats do exist in the Bluey universe, but I assume they just haven't been seen yet. And while it does make sense with the logic of the show, it really makes you question how dogs became the advanced species over just about everything. Religion in Bluey. Similar to most shows, Bluey has also had the occasional seasonal episode, with 2 based around Christmas and 1 based around Easter. And while they're quite entertaining, it does bring up the question if religions exist in the Bluey universe, as these holidays are rooted in religious traditions. And in the background of Bluey's house, we see a relatively tall building that appears to resemble a church. With that in mind, there's a good chance that religions do exist in the Bluey universe, which in itself could make their universe be even more connected to ours. But with those connections in mind, the parallels can go even further. I mean, with the same holidays and countries, it would make sense for them to also have a similar history to ours, but we'll talk more about that later. Knockoff Bluey toys. Just like any popular franchise, Bluey has a wide range of merchandise based off the characters and episodes, such as figurines and plushies. However, due to the demand for these toys, they can often be expensive and very difficult to find. As a result, many have accidentally or even intentionally resorted to buying bootlegs to fill the gap, and while some of them look okay, others can be pretty bad, and some of them are just outright insane, as knockoffs tend to be. So if you're looking for Bluey toys, especially online, make sure to check what you're buying. The pilot was a full episode. In the last iceberg, I mentioned both Bluey pilots, one which has never been released, and another which was uploaded onto YouTube. However, what I didn't know at the time was that the one on YouTube isn't even the complete pilot. In fact, the pilot was about the length of an entire episode, while only about a minute of it has surfaced online. And considering any info about it, the episode was basically the basis for the episode The Weekend, and likely follows a similar plot, with different characters and background designs. And when it was released, it was shown as a sneak peek of the show, which is why only a part of it has been found. However, it's likely going to be a while before the pilot is released, as it's basically just an early version of an existing episode, and it hasn't received a lot of attention outside of a few discussions. But with that said, I still hope that it does get released in some way. Dakimakiras. Yes, they have ones for Bluey characters too, even though admittedly it's mainly just Chili and Bandit as of now. But I'm sure most of you are just scared to know that these exist at all, so hooray I guess?
Death and Bluey. Despite being about talking dogs, Bluey takes place in a relatively realistic world with similar functions and rules to ours. And as tragic as it sounds, death does occur in the show, and the subject has actually been covered multiple times. For instance, the episode Copycat is about Bluey feeling regret and sorrow over a budgie that she wasn't able to save, with her coping by recreating the scene with the happy ending. And in the episode Flat Pack, Bluey actually pretends to pass on, pretending to meet her parents in the afterlife. And while the subject can be hard to cover, Bluey does so in a respectable and understandable way, which really proves how Bluey is more than just a silly kids show. Also, before anyone mentions it, Granddad Bob hasn't died. It has been confirmed that he will appear in future episodes, so that's something to look forward to. Ludo Studio Art Wall. On Instagram, user Mrs. PMB Creations made a post describing her visit to Ludo Studio, where she and a few others were able to see the show being produced, and even got a test screening of future episodes. And while it sounds like an awesome experience, there was one picture they took that looked interesting to say the least. In one of the pictures of the studio, a wall full of art can be seen, and while it looks normal at first, upon closer inspection, it has a lot of strange works, ranging from memes, parodies, and interesting fan art. Yeah. Third Healer Child Theory. In the last iceberg, I mentioned a scene from the episode The Show, where a balloon representing Chili's child pops, causing Bandit and Chili to react in a way some thought was alluding to a possible incident with one of Chili's babies. And while it's likely not true, some have found other hints to support this dark theory. In the episode Sleepy Time, Bingo dreams of traveling through space, seeing different planets along the way, and for this theory, we're going to take a look at what these planets represent. Shortly after she comes out, Bingo's favorite toy, Floppy, comes out of the Earth's moon, which represents how Floppy is close to and beloved by Bingo, and upon meeting each other, the two happily explore the rest of the solar system, where we see representations of the other healer characters. For instance, Chili is represented by the Sun, Bandit's represented by Jupiter, and Bluey's represented by what might be Venus, although the size and position doesn't exactly line up. And while this is a neat touch, there's another representation that's a lot darker. Remember that supposed incident with Chili's baby? Well, according to Anything Alfred's post on Reddit, Mercury, the planet closest to the sun and the one Bingo stands on when talking to Chili, actually represents that first baby, with its close proximity to the sun and the fact that it never opened or lived like the other kids. And while it sounds interesting, there's a few flaws to the theory, as it's unlikely that Bingo would have known about this, let alone put it in her dream. Also, it's not like all the planets represented something anyways, as Mars isn't seen at all, at least closely. But if I had to guess, maybe it represents a future child, but that's also very unlikely. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting theory, but there really isn't enough concrete evidence to support it, so it's still unlikely. Geneva Convention violation. On the package of some Bluey figurines, a set known as Dr. Checkup can be seen, and while it's a relatively normal set, an odd detail was present whenever it was shown on other sets, and that was the inclusion of a sticker covering the cross on Bluey's hat. And when the sticker is peeled, it shows that the cross is red, despite the actual hat not being colored. And while this doesn't seem like a big deal, there's actually a lot more to this subtle fix than most people realize. For those who don't know, the Geneva Convention is basically a set of rules listing what one can or can't do in war, as well as many other things related to it. And it turns out that one of these rules mentions the use of emblems and badges related to the Geneva Convention, and how they cannot be used outside of their intended purposes. And as you can imagine, one of these emblems is none other than the Red Cross. As a result, the stickers were likely placed as an attempt to hide the Red Cross, considering that the toys obviously aren't proper usage of it, and would have been violating the Geneva Convention. Also, if you were to find these sets, some of the later releases just have a colorist hat with no sticker on the package, meaning that they actually edited the image. So yeah, Bluey almost committed a war crime. Okay, well, people actually have to lose their lives in order for it to be considered as such, but it is something interesting to think about. Real events in Bluey. Considering how Bluey takes place in Australia, many have wondered if their history is also a parallel to ours. And from what we've seen, this is likely the case, as they appear to have the same religions as mentioned before. And in the episode Sleepy Time, an American flag is seen on the moon, which implies that the moon landing occurred in the Bluey world, which implies that the space race happened, which implies that the Cold War happened, which implies that World War II happened. So yeah, there might be a lot more to this world than we thought. Ink Bunny. Similar to DeviantArt and Fur Affinity, Ink Bunny is also a site where people can post art and pictures, with Bluey content also being posted on the site. However, unlike the first two, Ink Bunny is different, as it allows people to upload Rule 34 of underage characters, leading to many posting pictures of almost all the Bluey characters doing stuff they wouldn't do in the show. Bandit X Bluey. Speaking of Bluey Rule 34, there's this thing where people really like to see Bluey and her dad get it on with each other. Okay, you know what? I think we've been down here long enough. Let's get out of here. And there you have it, everyone. The second Bluey iceberg. Special thanks to everyone who submitted their ideas and corrections in the first one. And a special thanks to all of the articles and posts I used when researching this video. They will be in the description, and until my next video, don't forget to follow me on Twitter and join my Discord. Links for those will be in the pinned comment. And of course, if you have any suggestions for future videos, feel free to leave them in the comments below. But until next time, B&B Productions will be signing out. Have a great day, everyone!